Welcome to 5 Questions with LeRoy Butler. And you've got a little bit of black on here, don't you?
Yeah.
Is that morning
Well,
funeral wear?
I wore my Cynic's red shirt for Christmas, but I'm not feeling real well.
Yeah, you look
I
like
thought that was the
your
lock.
dauber is down a little bit, you know. You got
I thought it was the lock
funeral
game of the week.
colors.
The lock game of the week.
I
The
thought maybe-
Packers at Detroit.
I thought maybe you'd be coming in silver and blue, you know, because you lost a bet or something.
No.
You know, did Rodney Pete call you up and
Hey,
tell you
hey,
tell
don't
you
go
you
too
got to
deep
wear
there.
blue and silver?
Can you believe him?
Anyway.
I really did, Tom. It caught me off guard. I'm a little confused maybe, because maybe you should have been more prepared. But I know a lot of people were texting and emailing me saying this was a trap game. And I don't really necessarily believe that. You just got to be ready to play.
You know, there's 2 ways to look at this game. One was that, you know, Aaron Rodgers, we know, got knocked out with a second concussion. And Matt Flynn came in and, you know, obviously isn't Aaron Rodgers. And we know he missed some throws. But, you know, in the first half, the Packers, it's not like the Packers were moving the ball with Aaron Rodgers in the game. How do you explain how a team can, you know, and to me, it didn't look like Detroit was doing anything, you know, exotic on defense at all.
You know, I think a lot of the injuries, first of all, injuries are never an excuse, because you can't get with backups when you go to the Jets and beat them 9-0 and you get the glory, then you lose with the same guys against Detroit. You can't have it both ways. So let's throw the injuries out for a minute. But now it comes down to a few things with teams. The great teams, and we'll talk about New England in a minute because that's the Packers' next opponent. You have to be prepared, okay? The Packers are in a controlled climate, a place where they always play well. The last 10 years, they've always beat these guys. Greg Jennings always have a good game there. So does Woodson. So the 2 guys that you rely on the most didn't have good games.
Right.
And the other guys feed off of that. Had Woodson, you know, made a few plays, had Jennings caught the ball and was an interception, it'd be different. So the leaders on this team have to understand that Chicago Bears right now sitting as we do this video, they only got to win 1 more game to get to 10 wins. Right now they have to win out if they want to be in the playoffs. And I'm just very disappointed because it's a few games this year that I'm thinking that going to come back to bite them. The Washington game, the Miami game, and this game here. The Detroit game.
Atlanta, too. I mean, really, they should have won that game.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
you're right.
If Rodgers doesn't fumble on the
absolutely,
they win that game.
Absolutely. But I'm okay with the Atlanta part because Atlanta is very, I mean, they're the best team right now.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably in the NFL.
Right. Probably more in the NFC, but
Right.
either way. You know, the other thing about this that you were just mentioning was, you know, your stars, if they're not making plays, you're in trouble. I mean, Greg Jennings has the game, you know, right there in his hands, and it bounces right off his hands. Now, you know, you hope other guys will pick up the slack a little bit, but your stars still have to make the play.
Well, that's what it's all about, star power. I mean, the last 5 games coming in, Jennings was playing better than any wide receiver in the NFL, and he has an opportunity to basically open the game wide open. And again, the game started out so slow. It just seemed like now the Packers got away from using Starks a little bit and wanted to use Dimitri Nance a little bit. So it's maybe a little confusion there about who they want to make their starter. You know, I would have liked to have seen James Stark go in there and get 18, 19 carries. But at the same time, they're playing the Detroit Lions, whose secondary is not very good, Tom.
Right.
I would have been fine with the fact that they'd have went in there throwing the ball 40, 50 times and lighting the scoreboard up.
I don't have a problem with them spreading the Lions out and taking advantage of what you take advantage. But if you can't block their front 4 with 5 guys, then you have to make some kind of a concession and keep your tight end in, keep your back in, something. You know, go max if you have to, because you believe your wide receivers are better than their corners.
Yeah, their 2 tackles, Sue and Williams, always give the Packers problems. And they're going to have to block these guys for years to come, so they got to fix that. I mean, at some point, neither quarterback had time to really go to his second or third progression. But the confusing thing about this time, and Aaron Rodgers has been playing quarterback for a long time. Mm-hmm. So sliding, he should have done that in junior college, okay, to know that, to get to college, to get to one of the elite quarterbacks. But Flynn does the same thing. Yeah. So I don't know if it's being taught or they ignore the fact that it's dangerous. But as athletes, sometimes we don't always make the smartest decision. I mean, trust me, I never did that. But I did it on emotion. And I also did it on my backup isn't very good. So I got to play it close to the vest.
Yeah, live to fight another day.
That's exactly right. And once he had the first down, I know it's easy for us to say that now, but it just I had a problem with it because he didn't slide, and neither did Flynn.
Right. Wow. That's what that's who his mentor, his
right.
example is.
Absolutely.
I am going to raise one point, though, some counter to that, is that at that point in the game, in both instances, I think both quarterbacks were so desperate to make plays because nothing else was happening. Rodgers was just trying to get a first down, or some extra yards because he was having no time in the pocket.
Right.
They couldn't run the ball. Flynn, he got the first down on his. It was I think it was 3rd and 19 or something like that.
Right.
3rd and 16, and he got 19. I think it was desperation.
You don't think it was them saying Drew's standing running the ball around, they want to counter that?
Maybe, or it was just stupid. It could just be stupid. But I want to raise that issue that I think they were starting to get desperate.
And it was a big play. They were both big plays. Mm-hmm. But the intelligence part of it has to kick in. And sometimes as athletes, we don't always make that determination. So we just go off our instincts. I go what I've been taught in the past. Yeah. And it just kind of comes to me. And that's the difference between a Pro Bowl player and a player on the bench. Right. The guy on the bench has no instincts. Yeah. The Pro Bowl player is supposed to have the instincts, right. And we did not see it with those two guys.
Right. The playoff picture is very muddled. I mean, the Packers are I would say they're in trouble.
We need a little more here right now. Playoffs?
Yeah. And essentially, they don't control their own destiny. No. They absolutely need the Bears to lose to the Vikings next week.
Right.
What do you think the chances are of that happening?
I don't think. I mean, with the Vikings quarterback situation, and we'll talk about Brett Favre in a minute, so stay tuned for that. But, the Vikings didn't look very good against the Giants.
Terrible.
The Giants is a thorn in the Packers' side, as well as Tampa Bay. Yeah. And it just seems like this year they're not getting the breaks. So the only thing they can do is go out and win. And that's why I thought that the Detroit game was a game they really needed to keep pace. Now, had they won, they're right in the middle of it. They could also win a division and go to their ultimate goal. But it's going to be tough because even if you win, the other teams, if they win, it's going to be problems. I mean, Tampa Bay has a pretty easy schedule. I mean, and if I'm the Chicago Bear, if I'm a Chicago Bear fan, player, or head coach, I'm telling my guys it's a 2-game season. Win 1, 2 games. You win 2 games, we win the division.
Right.
You win 1, we're in the playoffs. So there's no pressure on them. So when New England destroyed them in the snow, no big deal. I wouldn't even show them the film because what?
Go on to the next game.
When you go out to play, you say Green Bay lost.
Yeah.
I mean, is Santa really giving us a present?
And you know what? Really, that's how the Green Bay Packers would be looking at this New England game if they had beaten Detroit, because they could afford to lose that game.
Right.
Win the next 2, and they would be in. They would win the division title.
Right.
Now there's no margin of error. I mean, they could lose the New England game, but they badly need the Bears to lose to Minnesota. I don't see that happening.
But I will say this. It's possible that Chicago could collapse and the Packers could win out. It can happen. And I know people are going to say, oh, Butler, you're just a homer, you're crazy. But any of you thought that the Packers were going to lose to Detroit? I mean, that was the lock game of the week.
All right.
So this year's been like that, Tom. It's going to be some other upsets. I'm just hoping the Packers understand that if Flynn does play, because Rodgers has his second concussion, that they have an opportunity because one thing they do have, okay, and they can fall back on. They got the number one scoring defense.
Right.
Nobody scores on the Packers very much, but they also will be going with a probable MVP in Tom Brady.
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody out there who's, checking off the Packers on their as victors next week against New England. I just, how can you on the road against a team that's scoring, 30 points every single week?
Yeah. Without Randy Moss.
Yeah, without Randy Moss, just playing
no running game
football.
But they get it done. They're very well coached and they're smart. And we'll talk about New England, shortly. But again, the Packers have to get a chip on their shoulder. They have to at this point in time. They have to figure out if they want to play in January and February. If they don't, it's going to be a long off season.
Pack it up right now. Okay, well, let's talk about a topic that everybody was talking about, a lot of people were talking about last night. Brett Favre's streak came to an end, 297 regular season games.
Yeah.
1992, you remember the game against Pittsburgh? That was his very first start. That was your third year in the league, I think.
Third year in the league.
What do you remember about that back then?
It's actually two throws, maybe three. This throw to win the game against Cincinnati was remarkable. And then to start against Rod Woodson and that group in Pittsburgh, they had a great defense. He just tore them apart. Yeah. And in my opinion, about Brett Favre, I don't think anybody in this world has a bigger opinion than me when it comes to Brett. So my opinion, to me, I value very much. There's not a tougher guy in my era to ever play football than Brett Favre. I never had to worry about him on Sunday for the 12 years or 9. I played 12 years for the Packers, but 9 with Brett. It was never an issue whether he was going to play. I could not say that for any other guy.
Right.
I always knew he was going to play. And maybe it was a little complacency and a little arrogance on my part. But
you didn't have any reason to believe he wasn't going to play.
Well, it was one particular time, I must share this, because he was one of the most engaging guys, and he still is. I said, man, let me see your ankle, because he had an ankle injury.
Was this against Minnesota? 95?
Yeah, and it was all. I said, let me see it, because he wouldn't show it to anybody, because he never wants sympathy. He said, look, guys, I'm gonna play. Don't be reading what guys like you would write. Oh, he's probable, doubtful. We would actually get in the locker room and laugh at the injury reports. I said, dude, you can't play. Let me see it. He wouldn't show it to me. He had like a towel on it. Because I thought, man, what kind of babies, and we're all divas as athletes, and we wanted people to feel sorry for us, like we're a big hero. So I snatched the towel off. His ankle was like a rainbow, purple, yellow. I said, man, it's all swollen, and it looked like when you watch some of these movies, like, these movies with dead people walking around. I said, you can't play. Not only did he play, practice, he did everything. And I just said, shaking my head, that there would never be another guy like that. Yeah. He wants so much for us as players to rely upon him. And I know it's a lot of other streaks. I mean, they're putting these streaks up now. AC Green, some guy from hockey. But let me tell you something. If I would even get close to telling you the injuries that he did not report, it'd be unbelievable. Because he never wanted sympathy. He wanted us to say, guys, I will be there for you, win, lose, or draw. And that's the most endearing thing as a player that you can have.
Yeah.
When a guy is going to be there every single Sunday. There will never be another Brett Favre.
People sort of forget, and they'll remember it later, but the image of him now is sort of milking the injuries and for people feeling sorry for him. But during his years in Green Bay, it wasn't that way. Yeah. He was not the same kind of.
He had a broken thumb. I said, you can't throw the ball.
Yeah.
He said, why not? Ain't nothing wrong with the chicken wing.
Yeah.
It ain't a thing. I said, what? You can't throw. You got tape and you can't throw. Not only did he go out and practice and complete every ball, Tony Romo gets a broken thumb, calls him up. How'd you play with that?
That's right. That's right, he did.
And
Yeah.
Tony Romo was just doing his job. Hey, man, I got a broken thumb. I want to ask a guy that has a broken thumb.
Yeah.
And
Brett said,
I
tape it up and go play.
Play!
You know?
And they wouldn't let
Pretty
Tony
much.
play, though. So Brett said, what? Play.
Yeah.
I can't stress this enough. I never looked at his locker and said he wasn't going to be there. My whole career, and it makes you feel good knowing that your quarterback is going to be there. Because trust me, we had some very capable backup quarterbacks, but I didn't want to see him out there.
Yeah, neither did
Especially, you know what? Sometimes you say intelligent stuff, really do. But that's the best point anybody's ever made, Tom. Brett knew that the backups
he
wasn't capable.
Well, yeah, that,
to
and he
do
was
what he could
totally
do.
insecure about
That's
someone taking his
exactly
spot.
right. He
You
was
know?
smart enough to know that I can't win a Super Bowl with the backups. I must be out there. That
Yeah.
drives him. That was very intelligent.
But
I'm
I'm
hoping
saying,
that Rodgers did that with Flynn and maybe Sly.
yeah, I think also though he was insecure about losing his job. He saw how he got the job from
Right.
Ron Mikowski.
Right. I can't
And he
just
was like,
limp off.
and here's a 3-time MVP, and I swear he was as insecure about holding that starting job as anybody I've ever seen. He, you know, I mean, when they draft a quarterback, I think he got nervous. You know,
Well,
in the
I
seventh
think-
round he'd be nervous. He just was not going to give up that spot.
Well, let's talk about that real quickly. The Aaron Rodgers draft pick. He should have been number 1 with San Francisco. He falls to 24 to the Packers. If you're Brett Favre, you're thinking, well, I'm the franchise. Okay. Now you bring this young kid in for the next 3 years to take my job. And he had one of his best seasons in 2007. So maybe that was the beginning of them trying to replace me. And you guys don't think I can do it again. After the interception against the Giants at home, NFC Championship game. Maybe there's something to that. You know, you bring in Rodgers, because otherwise you just had a bunch of backups sometimes. Purnell, Ty Detmer, Brooks, I can go on and on. But maybe it's something to that. But again, I mean, they're never, I would never even, Peyton Manning has a chance if he stays around for 55 years to break that record, but I don't think there'll ever be. I'm saying all positions, line, wide receiver, by far, to me, in my opinion, he's the toughest, durable player I've ever been around. I mean, I never had to worry about him, never.
Okay, so that wraps up our 5 questions, and don't forget to check in with our X's and O's. We're going to look at that 4th and 1 play, that gutsy call by McCarthy that did not work, and then we'll look at a New England play.
Yeah, you can catch me December 19th at South Ridge Mall from 1 to 3:30. I'll be signing my new copies of my book. And I'm telling you, everybody goes out and buy food during Christmas. Go to SynDixMarket.com. All the Ballast area own Syndix Markets. And you can catch me at LeRoyButler4.com and as well as LeRoyButler36.com.